being a parent is so much more challenging than anything else that we'll ever do, and probably the most important work I think that we ever do. So I really appreciate you all being here and investing your time in really providing your children absolutely the best homes and connection and all of that is possible. Um, so and so we're going to dig in today. The way we're going to do it, we'll do a quick overview, and then we're going to go through every room in the house. We're going to talk about each room and what we look at as Montessorians. How do we make it independent? How, that whole framework we'll give you for the whole house. So why a Montessori home? Well, to Jared's point, we want your child to have the experience of really being an important part of the house. One of the things that happens for children nowadays is it's really easy for them to be an accessory rather for them to actually be an important contributing member of their household. And if you are an accessory during your childhood, it is very challenging to transition then into a responsible contributing citizen in adulthood when that's never been a part of what you're learning, right? So our children, as we go through this, and you all actually all have similar age children, right? They're preschool or younger. I think Deandra has the newest member of our planet on the call. And so under the age of 3, we call it the unconscious absorbent mind. They don't know they're absorbing anything, but it's all going in. And so that means the way that we fold our laundry, they are taking in. The way that we put away our shoes is going in. The way that we talk to our partner when we're upset is going in. All of it, right? It's an unconscious upload. When they turn 3, they become aware that they're learning. It's really this beautiful moment where they what happens is they've developed themselves as an independent person. They actually know they're separate from you because 2 and under, they are developing that. Like Kim was joking the other day. Should have had you introduce yourself too, Kim, but her son Grayson is definitely defining himself as an individual right now. And how do we know that? Because he's saying no, right? And he wants to have his own boundaries and he wants to do what he thinks, and he's developing himself as separate from Kim and Adam, which is this beautiful moment, and for parents can be a little challenging, right? So then, and we want them to build themselves into these people for the world. They're really building their self-confidence through the overcoming worthy challenges. So often, and I think being a Montessori parent is a guard against this. We so often treat children, or can, I don't think we really work to not do this, but we take away their challenges. We make it easy for them. We want them to feel successful. And what we don't realize is every time we take away the challenge, they actually don't get to build themselves. They don't get to self-construct. I have a great view. I get to see one of our toddler classrooms, outdoor environment right outside my windows. And I will tell you, 2 days ago, I just sent Kim the video. I watched this little girl in Miss Danusha's class, and they're hammering these kind of tees for golf tees into a pumpkin, right? Working on that skill and that hand-eye coordination, and she couldn't even get the little piece, the tip of the spike into the pumpkin at first. And she said to Doreen, she said, "Help," right? And so Doreen came over and she didn't do it for her. She did the minimal amount she could, and she showed her how to get it in there. just to start. And then she let her do it. So I'm watching this child, actually, two of us were watching through the window, and don't you know, she literally, she worked on it, really was focused, and then she got it in, and she literally did a happy dance. She went, right? And you could see, now, she wouldn't have had that experience if we had not, if somebody had come in and done it for her, or not had it be hard enough. She actually did that twice more, and I caught the third one on film. And it was this great moment where she's doing this happy dance. So we have to make sure there are worthy challenges, and a huge part of that can come out of the household. And so we also want to make sure, and I talked about this a little bit, that what we're beginning with the end in mind. We want our children to be conscious and engaged. We want them to be citizens of the world. The truth is, it has never been more important for us to have our children be thinking about how to take care of others and their impact on the community and how they're responsible. And so a Montessori home actually has them step outside of their own self box and move into the ability to serve others and tend to others and think more globally, even if it's starting with thinking about the needs of the family. I love this quote by Dr. Montessori. So the parents, really it's the teachers, but I think it applies here as well. The parents' first duty is to watch over the environment. I'm trying to get this to work with me here. There we go. The parents' first duty is to watch over the environment, and this takes precedence over all the rest. Its influence is indirect, but unless it is well done, there will be no effective and permanent results of any kind, physical, intellectual, or spiritual. And so what Dr. Montessori told us, even over 100 years ago, is that the environment is a huge component in the development of the child, and the growth of their brain, the building of their neural pathways, and all of those pieces. And so our environment matters in a really big way. So today, I'm going to ask you to think about who your home is designed for, and just go mentally through every room in your house. If you were a person who, is 2 feet tall, how would you navigate the different areas of your home? Can you get on the furniture in the living room? Is there a way for you to be at the counter in the kitchen? If you're not at the counter, is there a way for you to be working at a table or some kind of place in the in the kitchen? Can you get to the toilet by yourself? Can you wash your hands by yourself? Can you get a drink of water? Can you take care of your basic human needs on your own? When you walk in your house, can you hang up your things on your own? Is there a place for your things? And so really what we're asking you to do is to take a look at your home prepared environment and think about who your home is designed for. I really recommend going around to each room in your house on your knees and just having the experience of, what does that room feel like? What does that room look like if you're your child's size? So let's take a little bit of time right now to talk about, I'm going to have you guys share with the group, if you don't mind. What are there areas of your home right now that your child, that's really designed just for adults, where your child spends time? Now, if you have an office and your child's never in your office or something, we're really looking at rooms in the house so that are in use by your child as well, or your children. Anybody want to start? I know it takes you have to be a little brave.
I don't mind going. It's funny you mentioned the office, because I look over and I see toys in my office. I have a box of crayons in my office. too many crayons for a Montessori house, but for me working from home, it's providing activities that Bennett can do independently and Claire can do independently. I think that's the idea. I mean, there's blocks and stuff, and that's been a big part of keeping us all sane over the last 6 months or whatnot.
Now, do they, Jared, in there, do they have a place to keep their toys, or are they bringing their toys in?
So generally, yes, they have a place to keep their toys or their belongings in general. Everything has to have a home. I think, my office is probably, so like the shopping cart full of autumn, gourds and stuff. That doesn't really have a home because it's kind of seasonal. It's not usually here. But the blocks, the crayons and stuff do. There's a spot on the bookshelf. So they can come in, they can grab it. They've become very self-sufficient at taking the paper out of the printer. So, that has its own place to stay. One of the things that happened for us was we moved into our house a year ago, and like anything, you have a plan and then you realize how it actually works. So, for example, we had intended to come in and out our back door because there was kind of a landing there and stuff. And what we realized was we never were using that door. We were using the front door. So we moved all the kids' shoes up there. I put in coat hooks that were, child height and stuff. And then it allowed them to kind of regain that independence of, okay, we're going to school or whatever in the morning. Here are my things and whatnot. So I think that was what I try to do is maybe every like 8 weeks or so is to take, because they're changing so fast at this age too. I mean, that's the good thing and the bad thing is like you just think you got it figured out and then something changes. Is I try to like take a step back, and they do have like their quote, Montessori room or playroom. And I'm actually due to do this right now, but to look at it and say, well, what activities aren't they using anymore? That puzzle's too easy. Like, do I have something that's a little more challenging?
Perfect.
Hidden away somewhere that Bennett can have, or I put this workout and Claire never did it. Well, does she need another lesson, or is she just not interested in it? I think that as this slide is titled self-reflection of that environment and realizing that it is it's dynamic. That at this age you're not gonna set it up once and have it go, but it's that constant kind of improvement, I guess, or adapt.
No, you're absolutely right. You're assessing the developmental needs of the child and you're responding, right? And it can't be stagnant. And one of the things I think that's a perfect point is you want to look what has dust on it, right? What are the things, unless you're really meticulous in your house and you dust all your children's toys. But for most of us, that we're not doing that. So what are the things that they're not gravitating towards? And is it too hard or is it too easy? And then replacing that. So that's perfect. Deandra, I saw that you had your your mute off. Did you want to share?
I'm thankful for this slide. I mean, I need to be more intentional about the environment. I'm on the, I think, opposite end where there are areas of the house where I don't want him to be. And so intentionally, I guess, I don't put things, for instance, in the first floor, I'm sitting kind of just looking where I am right now. In the kitchen, I guess, where he spends some time, there is a little something to occupy him, a little home for toys. And we have a couple of things, but I prefer he spend his time in his zone downstairs or upstairs. In my room, I've even put like a box, but I kind of wanted to keep the first floor presentable. I think that was kind of part of my strategy. Probably not the best for this lecture, but I don't want him hanging out too much because I think it just makes it hard for me to keep the area neat by myself. And then now with a baby that needs something to sit in on every floor, we've had to pull out some of that stuff. So we're having a hard time keeping things simple and keeping the clutter down when you have like newborn stuff that's necessary on each floor, and then like changing, like diaper, changing stations and everything everywhere. We're starting all over again. So I think this will help me be a little bit more intentional for Ethan and make sure he has stuff where I guess where I want him to be. Keep it away from where I don't.
Beautiful. Anyone else want to share a little bit about where you are in your process with your home? Okay. All right. So we'll keep moving along here a little. So here's some guidelines, and here's the thing. Your house is never going to be perfect, right? There's always going to be, to Jared's point, something else to do, and something else. If you're really engaged mentally in thinking about creating an intentional environment for your children, it will consistently be evolving, and it probably is never going to feel like it's really there. So I just want to take the pressure off of all of us, type A personalities who want it to be perfect, that we're going to do as the best that we can, and that's going to be great. So a thoughtful space for the child in each room of the house that you want want them to use, right? To your point, Deandra. A place for everything and everything in its place. Both of you guys mentioned that. You are thinking about if there's a new toy coming in, where does that go? Not that it goes in the bin, and we'll talk about that, but like where does the knife live, or where does the stool live? Or so the child actually, part of what happens for a child is the external sense of order develops their internal self-discipline, right? So part of what happens is they're taking the environment in, and the sense of order for them of their mind and the way they think and the way that they operate and hold themselves is being developed as they work with the materials and the objects and what's in their environment. Aesthetically pleasing. This is a big piece. I find that oftentimes in children's spaces, we're willing for the child's space to be much less beautiful than we would have a space that we spent time in. So for us as Montessorians, we always want the child's space to be as beautiful as an adult space. So for example, in our house, our girls, we never put up like Winnie the Pooh or any of the, because I wouldn't want to sit and look at Winnie the Pooh. And that's a whole nother conversation about bears wearing clothes anyway. But so we got a big Monet framed print, and my daughter, so she's had that in her room since she was an infant. And we were talking about it the other day because my eldest was trying to talk her into giving her the Monet print. And she loves it. She says, no, it's peaceful. I look at it when I'm stressed out and I find peace in the space of that, right? So can your child actually look at what's in their environments and feel a sense of peace, feel a sense of calm, and really develop a sense of beauty? And so for us, we like to consider the greats when we're looking, and really the masters when we're looking at beauty. But for everybody, beauty looks a little bit different. So that's another piece. Developmentally appropriate. Jared, I think you did a great job of covering that, making sure that the things are not just sitting there because they've been there, and actually having them be something that the child is using to develop themselves. When you think about the child, it's helpful to think long term and to think about with the end in mind. So you want them to develop the skills that they can every step of the way, because really what you're thinking about is when they're 18, you want them to have the skills. You want them to have the ability to do everything that they're going to need to do as an adult, right? And have, now, not that their learning stops, but they need to be able to register a car, change, they know how to change a tire, they need to know what to do to call for assistance, they need to know how to um, balance their checkbook. I mean, there's so many pieces. So it's important that we don't wait too long to teach them these other basic skills, because you have 18 years to fit in the education for your child. And part of that is looking to see what is really developmentally appropriate in that moment. Natural sensorially rich materials, we really ask that you use as little plastic in the environment as possible. Now, of course, when you're, doing something that's wet, you need to carry it, there's going to be buckets, there's going to be those kind of things involved. But when we're talking about like how you store things, is it a beautiful environment? Is it something that you would like to store things in? So if we really tried to use nice baskets in the environment, we used things that were sensorially interesting, because if you ever feel plastic, I don't know, for example, we were car shopping several years ago and I fell in love with a car. I fell in love, it was I don't know, remember what one it was. It was a Toyota, but the steering wheel felt plasticky to me. And I didn't buy the car because of how I didn't like how the steering wheel felt. And it's interesting with children that we give them so much that's plastic that's not actually a gratifying feeling. One of the things to know about the brain, and this is an article that came out maybe a decade ago, but that when you're stimulating the sensory part of the brain, you're actually supporting the part of the brain that also holds memory capacity. So we want it to really be sensorially rich for our children. Design every space that they're going to be in, designed for independent success so that they can do things as much as possible independently. Of course, not everything can be done independently quite yet, depends on the age, but as much as possible. And inspires purposeful work. And so really having a space that for your child makes them want to be engaged, makes them want to be involved, makes them want to participate in your home life. So we'll start with the kitchen. That's always the heart. Any questions before or comments before we move on? Okay. So we for the kitchen, we want to create access for our children. So this can look a lot of different ways. On the left, I love this little. This isn't my house. I had things separated out more. The slide in the center is our house in Massachusetts before we moved. But we have here, they have snacks, healthy snacks. One of the things I hear from parents is, well, I want them to eat their dinner. If you put out for snack something that's as healthy, if not healthier than they would eat for dinner, a lot of times people are having pasta for dinner or there's bread served. You can actually get kind of sneak in some fruits and some vegetables and some healthy choices if you can catch them first before. So, and then they can also feel ownership and feel like they are able to manage their own physiology and respond when they're hungry. I also recommend having plates out, utensils out. Here you can see they have napkins out, a juicing apron, things for cleaning. We'll talk about materials a little bit more for cleaning, and a laundry basket, a chopping board, and then some utensils. Now, one of the things I love having a laundry basket in the kitchen. What we did was we bought, a huge stack of rags, and we have a rag drawer, and we still have a rag bucket. And so that there's never an excuse for not cleaning up after yourself, and they can go get a rag. Now, yes, you do have to do a load of rags every week for sure. But it really helps them to be self-sufficient as well. In the kitchen, you also want them to have access to water themselves when they're thirsty? Can they get a drink of water? You can solve that with a water bottle if you'd like, but you can also, we used to have one of those crafts that had a lever, and they could go over and fill the water. Really as early as about 14 months, they can manage that on their own. Yes, there can be a mess for sure of water, but they do learn pretty quickly how to manage that. Can they get to the table by themselves? I know for one of the things that we find with Montessori, we don't strap them in at a high chair because they can't get in and out of the high chair on their own. We want them to feel independent to be able to own that. So part of why Montessori children can sit at the table and have a meal is because they've learned how to sit and manage to have the self-control. If there's an external control on the child consistently, and they have to have somebody else holding them in the chair, a strap is holding them in the chair, they're not going to be able to build that same skill of self-control and self-discipline and be able to stay put. So I love these. At IKEA has one also, or they used to, that you could step up into it, and so they can get up and down by themselves to the table. I also recommend well, I have a slide about that. And then also this little guy is up at the kitchen on we had a learning tower, which was much bigger than this. The nice thing about it is you can fit 2 children in it, but I really recommend having something that allows them to get up to the sink, something that allows them to get up to the counter, so they can fully participate in the work of the home in that way. You want to have your child be involved. So this is Georgie when she was on the left. She's cleaning up after herself on her weaning table when she was just probably about 14 months old here. She's cleaning up after herself. She had access to a sponge to clean up after her. And every time she got up from snack, I would go over and get this sponge, which was at her height. So then she learned that skill of going over, and she was then able, once she started walking, she and I would go over together until she could go and get the sponge herself and wipe down her area herself. To your point here, Jared, here's something dangerous. This is Georgie at about age 3 here. She's making some oatmeal for breakfast. That's an opportunity. That's the learning tower we're talking about, but it's an opportunity for your child to be heavily involved in your, oh, didn't mean to do that. Sorry. In the space, and I do recommend allowing children under supervision to use the stove. I think that's a really important one of those life skills, so that they have the opportunity to burn themselves. I know that sounds terrible, but we want them to actually know that life, you have to be careful before they get behind the wheel of a car, before they're making these big life choices that they really need to be paying attention. And they have that feeling that that's a self-confidence builder. That's one of those things that knowing that they can use the stove supervised is step 1 in our house. Step 2 is using the stove unsupervised. And step 3 is being able to use the stove when they're home by themselves. So those are kind of our steps up. Now they don't get to stay home by themselves till they're 8, but we still, like Georgie now can use the stove when she's home by herself. She's 10. So, and then the little girl on the right is making breakfast for everybody, and you can see she's on the grill. So having them be involved as much as possible. And we haven't talked much about this, but really having them be involved where they get to own the project. Originally when my girls came into the kitchen, Christos is the cook in our house. It was really hard for him to let them have ownership in any way. And, so he's gotten much better because they don't have any interest in in trying to cook and having somebody else micromanaging them. So what I recommend is to get out in front of it and talk about the steps before you start. And of course, if they're going to stick their hand on the, on the burner, they're not going to be ready at that point to be able to be on the stove. But really giving them the opportunity, yes, it will be a bigger mess. If you have a 2-year-old, can they make a peanut butter sandwich by themselves? Are you gonna, and yes, there will be peanut butter and to clean up, and they will participate in that part of the process as well. It's really important that we not swoop in and clean up their messes for them all the time without having them participate, because then they don't actually learn that skill. So that's a piece of it as well. I recommend having child size everything. And so a child size broom, a dustpan, these are all available from Montessori Services. They have child size, and now you can get almost everything on Amazon. Back when I was starting with my girls, things were harder to find, but now almost everything's easily available. A small cutting board. So these knives are great. They allow for children to really cut through. They can cut their finger, but they would have to work really hard on it with these kind of serrated plastic knives. And then giving them a place to be independent. This little girl, you can see she's at a weaning table. I really recommend for those of you who have infants or really young ones to have a weaning table in the kitchen where they can get in and out by themselves. When I was home with my first, when her dad wasn't home, we ate at the weaning table together so that she could really be in control of getting up and down and sitting and being able to manage that on her own. I just put a cushion down on the floor and we would sit there. This is another setup. One of the things for those of you with older children, I really recommend having the bowls and the cups and everything where the child can reach them so that they can set the table. They can have ownership of that. If they can't reach anything and you're always having to pull it down for them, that is not the same thing. So we have an IKEA kitchen. We have drawers on the bottom. When anybody comes to our house, they never know where anything is because they're always looking in the upper cabinets. But everything's down low so that now it doesn't need to be as much, but even Georgie can't really reach everything at 10 still. So the other thing I highly recommend is you want ceramic, not plastic. You want them to have ceramic right from the beginning so that they learn that things break and they pay attention in life. But I have to tell you that I go to Marshall's and I get the least expensive white sets of plates, white sets of bowls and so that we don't have to worry about them breaking. It's not my good china. I don't have good china, but if I did have it, I wouldn't have it out, right? So also a little pitcher. You can see there's a glass pitcher here, and then some snacks over on the side that are their size. So they've got some almonds and things, some fruit. This is a very small shelf, and these things are small, you can see. And then the utensils, even a tablecloth and a cutting board. So, and then some glasses so that they have access. So I really recommend, it doesn't have to be open shelved. It's nice if it is, like if you're in Danusha's class, if you're in Michelle's class, a lot of times the things that they keep these things in have a front, but it's a clear glass front. And so that children can see into it, which helps invite them to the work. And if it's closed, that's fine. I recommend not, I recommend just making sure that it's at their height. That's the number one, that they can get to it independently. Any questions about the kitchen or thoughts or comments or something that's worked or anything you want to share?
The only thing I would say is you talked about sitting at the weaning table.
Yeah.
I actually found if I steal the step stool,
Oh, good.
and it has to get things on a counter or in the bathroom, I just sit on that. It's surprisingly comfortable. and it puts
Oh,
me right at the right height, and I can sit at the table with them. And then when we're done, I just put it back wherever, it belonged.
mhm.
But it's, something we all probably already have. And
That's
it makes,
perfect.
it makes for a little more enjoyable mealtime.
Especially for those of you who are taller, right? I kind of fit at the weaning table a little bit. It's not too bad for me. All right, perfect. Thank you. The bedroom. So the floor bed blows most people's minds. I am going to talk about it a little bit. In Montessori, we recommend a floor bed right from the beginning. I did start with a crib size mattress for my oldest. It turns out she's a ninja sleeper. So we ended up getting a full size futon for her and putting that on the floor. That worked much better. Because when you look at what a crib does, is it's really designed as to keep them away from the rest of the world. And one of the things that they find is there are a lot of crib accidents because the children are climbing out of a crib rather than climbing out of a bed. It's also a harder transition into a regular bed. So we really, for independence sake, for them being able to see the room, for them being able to move where they would like to move and not feeling hindered, also not having their sleep hindered. I will say we did have a couple of times where my oldest had rolled. My youngest, thank goodness, was much much more sedentary, maybe sleeper, but the other one, she did roll a couple times across the room, but for the most, we'd find her and move her back into bed. That happened twice, and then she figured it out, right? And so I really, I, you know, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that, unless you have questions. We also recommend in their bedroom to have some things for activities for them to do. If they're in a floor bed, what's nice is they will actually, instead of having to cry to get out of a crib or holler for you, they're able to go right and start to play and keep themselves engaged, which is really important for building their ability to be by themselves and that sense of calm and well-being. If you notice, we can here, one of the things that they've done really well is that they have things separated out by, they're well organized, and there's only a few things to choose. So I do want to talk a little bit about how you store your toys, one of the things that generally happens with a lot of folks is our kids have a lot of stuff, right? And it is too much. It is usually too much. There's rarely a house that I've walked into that is, not a Montessori house where the child is not overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that they have and it really is very challenging for the brain. There's a lot of research coming out now about what they are calling simplicity parenting, that it's overwhelming for the child's brain and can cause actually some attention issues and all of that. So look at I like to say, the number of years that your child is, you can double that, right? So if your child is 2, you have 4 things out at a time. You can change those things out every day. But the thing that is amazing is if you have put out new things, they feel new to the child, right? So if you are in a place where you are not, you have everything in a bin, the child is not drawn to it. They don't find it attractive. It's not interesting to them. But if you treat their toys like they're really important, the way you treat the things that you feel are important, and you have them separated out and they're easy to reach and they can see them, they are going to be much more drawn to them. One of the things that I highly recommend is to have a storage area for toys in wherever you store things, in your basement, wherever it is, in your attic, some people have it stored inside the kitchen, whatever works, but only pull out what you need and what the child will be drawn to. Have it limited. And I used to, when I'd have to work on a Saturday, I would go down and when the children get a little older, they can choose, what do you want to put away? What are we going to get out? And so there's a much more of an interaction about it. When they have big tubs of things, they will be overwhelming, they will get broken, they don't learn to care for their things, and then we're surprised that they haven't built that skill. So I this is probably one of the biggest pieces of having a Montessori home, is to really have a limited amount of stuff for them to have to navigate. I even think that the number of books they have out here is too many. Now, who knows? This child may be an avid reader. But the other thing that's really nice is there's a chair just the child's height, and the child, even a crawling child, can crawl up into this chair. So those of you who have younger ones, think about a space where the child who's crawling can actually crawl up into the chair as well. I love the books that this person has chosen. This is they have, she has beautiful images of children from around the world. She's got beautiful nature images, and it really makes a difference as the child's processing, what does the world look like? What does the world feel like, for them to have this experience of really getting to see what the world looks like. I am going to talk just briefly about books. I think that having books that have, when your books all have talking animals and they're dressed in clothes, it's not real life. Children under the age of 5 cannot actually distinguish consistently between fact and fiction. And so particularly for the toddlers, when we're giving them those images of these animals that are talking, it's kind of a setup, because bears don't really talk. Well, they talk in their own bear language, but it's a different, they're not talking in words like human words. And so I feel like we're setting them up to then see what a real bear looks like and feel disappointed, rather than being like, wow, grizzly bears are really cool. Can you look what they eat and how they live and how they hibernate and all of that. So that's my plug for having nonfiction, real life photos, books, and of course, beautiful pictures. Any questions, comments, thoughts about any of that? Okay. Independence in the bedroom. So one of the things that, just like with toys, so often our children have so many clothes and it's a lot to navigate. We recommend having limited choices out for them. And I have to tell you, this is a place, let your children choose what they're going to wear. I walk my talk on this one. You can see my girls, they come in some crazy outfits, and it's an opportunity, it's a place for them to be fully self-expressed. The truth is that most decisions are made for our children. This is a place where they actually get to make choices on their own. So, if I had a woman who, she worked for a fashion magazine, and she was taking this class a couple of years ago, and she said, "Nuh-uh, it is not happening. My child is not going to school in something that I have not approved." So we said, okay, then how about you give choices of outfits? Like, she was not okay with stripes and polka dots going in on this, mismatched. Her child's going to end up wearing the craziest things later on in life, right? That's going to be the rebellion, is like these crazy outfits. But so she ended up picking out a couple of outfits and putting those out, and then the child could pick from the outfit. So if you have a attachment to your child, looking the way that you'd like them to look, then you can do it that way too. Notice the child can identify where the socks are, how to get the socks, their underwear, their shirts, their pants, whatever they need is available. The other thing I really like is having a mirror, and they have this here, a mirror and tissues, so that the child can blow their nose. The one piece I will say is, I would recommend having a little garbage can there as well, so the child can then put it in. But we don't need to swoop in. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever seen this happen, but I watch people all the time. They even come up behind the child and this, so all of a sudden, imagine being this child and you're sitting here and you're doing whatever you're doing, and this from beyond comes around and it's wiping their nose and they don't even know it's coming. The child is not a doll. They have feelings, they have experiences. That is startling. So that's a whole nother conversation about really getting your child's attention, talking to them, telling them what you're going to do to their body before you move them, right? But I love having a place for them to be able to blow their own nose, and really make their own choices in the bedroom. I think I should add a slide of all my girls' crazy outfits to this. Anything about the bedroom? Any questions, thoughts, additions, good ideas? Okay. The bathroom. So the bathroom is one of those places it's really easy for us as parents to really kind of own all of it. I really recommend, one of the things that's interesting is faucets. I don't know why they design faucets like this. If I was a faucet designer, the faucet would come to the middle of the sink. Why do they put it at the back of the sink where we just redid one of our bathrooms. I looked for faucets that came out farther. I could not find a faucet that came out the way that I wanted it to for the bathroom. So anyway, I don't know what that is about. So I do recommend, like on the left, there's this little spout that helps bring the water out farther so they can reach. Because I remember going to people's houses, I'd lift my child up and she's leaned over and you're like pushing their top half so that they can reach the water. Having soap, they love to push soap dispensers. I would really recommend cutting your soap. I used to cut it, I'd put water in and having it so you're not going through so much, because especially when they're learning to wash their hands, they will struggle with that. And then having a towel right there. You want to have a stool. We used to have two stools. We had a stool by the sink and we had a stool by the toilet so that they could get to both independently. And then in one bathroom, the picture in the middle is a stool that I found that we still have. Unfortunately, I haven't seen these. I found it when they were this was the prototype and they didn't end up making them, but it's heavy, but the child can actually move it back and forth because it has handles. The toilet seat, it's great to we have a session on toilet training, but it's really nice to not have anybody's face on it. I think it's so weird to have Dora the Explorer and you're teaching your child to sit on somebody's head or face. That's so bizarre. So I really recommend having a clear, a plain toilet seat. And then it's really nice for it to have handles so that they can hold on, because it is unnerving for them to sit and balance. They don't have that balance, that equilibrium built yet, so they can get really wobbly up there. So I loved having and this was a Target. I found this at Target. Now this was many years ago now. And then having it set up for them, even this is underneath the sink, but the spare things that they may need, their toothbrush, this is obviously before fully toilet trained, but we use this for the night pants when they were still having some accidents at night, and a towel and all of those good things. In your bathroom, if you can't, some people their bathroom's not big enough to be able to get the child to the sink, you can create a little stand outside the bathroom to allow them to wash their hands, which is also a nice idea. You can just keep water in the pitcher if you need to. The other thing that's really nice about this is it has the a nail brush, so when their nails get dirty, they can have a lesson on that as well. One more thing, when they're in the bathtub, it's really nice to have a little shampoo. You can get the travel size and you cut the shampoo again, with water so they can serve themselves, or some people put in a single serving of shampoo so they can put the shampoo in their hand themselves and lather up themselves. I also used to have a spray bottle in the shower because they love to spray so much, and that way when I had a spray bottle in the kitchen for cleaning up, they didn't spray everywhere. That's the other piece. The spraying spray bottle for the kitchen is great so that I really recommend using like half vinegar so that if they spray it in their mouth or whatever, you're not worried about that. Vinegar is a great disinfectant. So we did white vinegar, half water. Early toileting. We have a whole session on this if you guys are interested, but this is my house again in Massachusetts. I had a stool there for sitting on for myself. I really recommend having books so the child can sit and look while they're trying to eliminate. Then you also have a small toilet. I always like to have what I called a potty and then also the toilet, and so they could choose where they would like to sit. You can see that there's diapers and there are also rags so that they can clean up during the process of toileting. They can clean up after themselves. Of course, then you have to go clean up as well afterwards, but it allows them to be responsible rather than, eliminating and then running off to play again. We want them to learn how to clean up after themselves and take that responsibility. Also, it's nice to have if your child's still in diapers, to keep the diaper somewhere and have them participate. We also recommend having them changing their diaper standing up so they can participate. This little girl, this is the daughter of Margaret Drell, who still works for us from Florida, actually, and her daughter would go get the diaper and they would put it. It was a process that they did together rather than the child laying on the back and having the process done to them where they don't have any power. They don't have any opportunity to really participate. It's the difference of being an active, equal member of what's happening to you and kind of being this unparticipating, unable to participate member of the activity. Any questions about bathroom or showers or any of that? One of the things I find with the showers, it's another place we have like 16 things for them to do. They really don't need that many toys, 3 or 4, and then we have them line them up afterwards so that they're cleaning that up instead of just leaving them in the bottom of the tub for somebody else to clean up. So having it set up for them to be tending to their environment there is also great. The play area, having an area for them to write, and once they're ready to do that, and then this is we talked about these principles again, really simple, having a place for them to sit on their own, having them have a place for everything and everything in its place and not overwhelming. Again, take everything you don't need, put it down put it in your storage, get out something you just rotate things and they will feel new. You'll have to actually buy less stuff because they won't need all that constant new stuff. The other thing I would recommend, if you have battery operated toys that go doo doo doo, take the batteries out. We really recommend not giving them things that are going to have them have to be entertained, because one of the things we really recognize is the brain, unconscious, right? Unconscious absorbent mind is absorbing how the world is going to occur for them. So they're absorbing that they're going to be constantly entertained when they have toys that go neat, 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 and then they're not going to need to initiate the activity and engage their own brain. So it's really the difference of reading a book and watching TV, right? Read a book, you have to think of the images, you're actively engaged, you're thinking differently. You watch a movie and it's all coming to you. So really consider, I know we had one toy that actually we liked because it was matching sounds, and that one was worth keeping the battery. They had to actively engage, but if it's just about entertainment, it really is, I don't hold it in very high value. The entryway, and also just developmentally appropriate here. We want to make sure that your child has something that's these are really stretching them, and Legos are always great. That allow for fantasy play. Fantasy play is a different part of the brain. It is and children need it. They need to be able to dress up and try on different identities as they're putting on dress up clothes. So those are also some nice pieces to have included in your areas. I will say my 10-year-old still every once in a while will get out her dress up things and put on a fashion show. So the entryway is, you want to have it designed where they can reach, they can hang up their own things, they know where things go, they have a place to sit so they can put on their shoes without having to sit on the floor. I like having a mirror in the entryway as well, so that they can see. Like we had a rule when the girls were young, you always had to wear a hat outside. I'm very fair and I have a lot of sun damage, and so we were really adamant about that. So they had a mirror so they could put on their own clothes and do that. So I also like to have a little basket for mittens. You can see both of these are my environments in two different houses, and they both have a basket for them to put mittens and hats, and so they can keep them. I'm going through this pretty fast, so if you guys want to jump in, please let me know. You can also use the chat. The outdoors, really recommend having children be actively engaged in the outdoors as much as possible. And one of the things that we find is that they're not necessarily doing the work of the home. A lot of times people will bring somebody in to do that work. It's important for them to learn the skills of the outdoors as well and to participate there. And there are a lot of ways to do that. I love having a planting area outside so that we can easily, there's rocks and soil, and we can do our planting outside. And also, we use it for other things as well, but their height. This little girl's planting a garden, and then of course sweeping up over here. Also, we spend a lot of time in cars and nowadays, so I really recommend having your car be a prepared environment as well. It needs to have a little garbage place to keep the garbage. And I like having an organizer in the car. I don't have one right now and I'm missing it. I Our last one got ruined and I need to get a new one, because it really makes a difference for our children to have a place to keep all their things, so they get to keep their books or dolls, or if you have snacks in there and water. It's really nice to have the car also be prepared as an environment. The playground and beyond. So this gets into a little bit. That's my nephew on the left, by the way. He's a lot old. He's 14 now. But when your child goes to the playground, our rule was always that they can do what they're capable of doing, with the exception of the swings. I find that it's really easy for us as adults to move the child around the playground to do what we want them to do. We really recommend having them get to make their own choices at the playground. Some children will sit and want to play with the mulch. That's perfect. That they can do that. And we also don't want to put them in a position where they're going to end up being put in a position where they're on equipment that is not their size and they can't really navigate it without somebody having to take care of them. So that's another piece we like to think about out in the world. We really want our children to be contributing members of our home and participate in any way that we can. I have some ideas for you of um, chores and things we'll go over in a second. Care of other living things. We want them to take care of the animal, and I have to say, as early as 20 months they can really be feeding. You get a cup so that they know what size, and so having them get to um, take care of the dog, take care of the cat, take care of the fish, whatever animals you have, having them have that responsibilities, having them water the plants so they have the opportunity to take care of other living things. So, any questions about kind of the environment before we move on? We're just going to go over some ideas for chores and ways to get your children involved in the home. Okay. So chores for 2 to 3 year olds. So I would really recommend having your 2 to 3 year old, like Dr. Montessori said, if they can walk, they can work. And we really believe that the child feels valorization through their work. And I have to tell you, so they can have resistance to helping when they're 2 to 3. You're not going to pressure, it's just not a domination thing. And you have to also understand that they're building new neural pathways, so it's not always comfortable either for them to try new things. So we want to give them a lesson on how to do these things. And really, when you're giving a lesson, you are getting into their world. And the session on the child, I'll go over how to give a lesson specifically, but you want to give them a lesson on how to do each of these things and not just assume. When you give a lesson, you want it to be very slow, very purposeful. You want to have all the materials you're going to need, where they're going to be, so that the child knows where to go for those. We find that really makes a big difference. So, so dusting off the end tables, TV stands, they can help set the table. I don't know if you've seen the video on our Facebook page, but we had, our children know how to set a table in the toddler room. They set up the whole thing themselves. And that includes carrying plates and bowls and all of its ceramics so it can break, and having them have that opportunity. Gathering up dirty clothes, putting clothes in the hamper, wiping down cabinets, wiping up spills, washing windows, washing the tricycle. This is when I was washing my car. My daughter came out and started washing her trike. Chores, more chores for 2 to 3 year olds: sweeping, mopping, watering plants, picking up toys, helping to cook, feeding and watering pets, and clearing dishes from the table. Okay. Now when they get to 4 to 6, they can start making their own bed. And I think they can do that at 3, but they need some support. Making their own snacks, putting away their clothes, helping putting the groceries away, vacuuming small rooms or halls, assisting with raking the yard, and beginning to make simple meals. When they're 4 to 6, we also in our house started having them help to mend things. This is my daughter doing embroidery, but we also we will mend a pair of pants or something that has broken at the knee. We like them to have that skill, even if it doesn't look great when they're done. Folding laundry, setting and clearing the table, embroidery, emptying the dishwasher, learning to use the stove. And then for 7 and 9 year olds, cooking more complicated meals, cleaning their bedrooms, packing their own lunches, taking out the garbage, responsible for recycling, and loading the dishwasher. One of the things I have to say about the bedroom, if your child consistently has a big mess in their bedroom or in their play area, they have too much in there. And so it's too much for them to manage. And actually, that's a conversation we still have with our girls. I have a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. when their rooms are a disaster and they can't manage to get it back together, I go in with them and we take probably a third of the stuff out and get rid of stuff and go through clothes, because if they can't manage it on their own, it is too much. That's just the rule. And that's true for all of us. I think if you have, as an adult, I've realized that if I can't keep my closet picked up, I have too much stuff. I need to get rid of stuff. And we are in an era of consume, consume, consume. We consume to make ourselves feel better rather than doing, it's by design. I'm certain of it. I know that that's a whole different conversation I shouldn't get into while I'm being recorded, but that the focus on consuming and spending money rather than doing the spiritual work we need to feel better in our world has us have so much stuff, and it's overwhelming, and then we spend our time taking care of our stuff rather than our time connecting with our children or our family or our loved ones. So it's really important that we keep that as simple as possible, and for them too. Doing dishes, training pets, mopping the floors, planning menus, ironing, using tools to fix things around the house. I will share that as soon as my daughter was this is for when she's 9, she became the person who fixed things. And you can see this is where our bowls and our plates are, right? But she became the person who fixed things in our house. And so she would, if something was broken, we'd call her, and she really still loves that. She's the person who builds all of our furniture. Now my youngest one's starting to be the builder. Oh, and here she is building things. Sewing projects using the washer and dryer. Right now Georgie's in charge of the family laundry, like the towels and the tablecloths, and she's my 10-year-old, and her own laundry. That way she learns that skill, and otherwise they go through 16 outfits a day. Shoveling snow, unloading the dishwasher, walking the dog, assembling household items. And then for older students, I don't think we have any older student parents here today. So I'm gonna, I don't think we need to go through all of these, but I do, you notice that we want them to have the skills when they turn 18. And I think that's all I have, right? Yeah. So here, let me talk. Any questions, thoughts? Anybody want to share anything they're thinking about? Hi, Alicia.
I'm happy to share. Hi. This is touching on something that we're actively working on right now. And I really love what you said, that if we can't manage our own stuff, like keeping it organized, then we just have too much. And I think that's a really good thing to just keep in mind if things are just constantly in a state of chaos in her own room and even just around the house, then we have some work to do to kind of pull things out that we're not using anymore. And we're just actively going through various places in our home, trying to clean up the books and kind of set things out so that they're more accessible. And one of the things that she says to me all the time, because we just don't do TV during the week, is she just feels bored, like she doesn't know what to do. And so I have to kind of give her ideas of things to do, but she has a number of things that she could be doing. Mm-hmm. She has a lot of projects she could jump into if she wanted to. And I think the visual of putting things out might be helpful as well. Mm-hmm. I feel a bit overwhelmed by the options, honestly, because there's just so many kits that we have, like rock painting kits, a bracelet making kit, jewelry making kit, various paint sets, and all of them come with little pieces. So I keep them contained in the boxes and set them up so that they can be, an option for her to pull out. Mm-hmm. But if she's not reaching for them, then I'm just not sure what to do in that case. Mm-hmm. So that's just stuff I need to
Can I give
figure out.
you a little coaching on that, those
Please.
pieces? Yeah.
That'd be
So
great.
I highly recommend that you not be responsible for her engagement or her boredom. So one of the ways that we handled that really early is that we, and I got this from my mother. If I ever said that I was bored, my mom said, "Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. I have a bathroom that needs cleaned." Right. And she found a solution for me to my boredom immediately. And I will tell you, I didn't end up going to her being bored. I took responsibility, because part of what happens for children when they're telling you they're bored, they're trying to have you be responsible for engaging their brain. And she's responsible. She's so capable of that. And she's an only, right, Alicia?
Yes.
Right. So, and that's okay. Like so you're not responsible for entertaining her, right? What you are responsible for is the environment, right? And being an example of somebody who also does things that you enjoy. And that's one thing as parents, I think we skip, right? And I really am grateful to my husband, because through all of this, parenting and such, he has kept playing the guitar, right? And so when he has a few minutes, he gets out the guitar and he plays the guitar and sings, and it's gives my kids an example of somebody. Like, I had given up reading until just I read for work. I read, the parenting books and education books, and leadership books, but I hadn't read a book that I enjoyed. And I realized that I also need a role model that, right? And so that's the other piece, is having you be a role model of doing things you enjoy. If you are interested in her getting out one of the craft kits, get it out. You get it out. You don't have to say a word to her. I recently, I said to Georgie, was talking, she's like, she was saying, well, since COVID, I haven't been able to have, friends over. I don't have as much to do. And I fell into the same thing. I was like, well, you have this, you have this, you have this, you have this. She's like, I don't want to do any of that. Right. I listed so many great things. I should have said, great, I have a bathroom you can clean. But so I realized I'm trying to sell her, like I'm a salesperson for the activities. So it was a beautiful day. I went and we bought at the beginning of maybe 3 months ago. I'm still working on it, but we bought a paint by number, and we have it out on this little table, right? It's very good for stress relief, I've found. So I took this paint by number, and I went outside and I started painting on it, and she came out and she said, "Can I do that with you?" Of course. Right. And then I went in and I got some rocks, because I love rock painting, and got some rocks, and I started working on those. And she's like, "Oh, I want to do that." Now, both of those things were on the list of things that I gave her to do. And if I had said, and I had even said, "Hey, do you want to do this with me?" She didn't want to do it with me until I just decided what I wanted to do. What would I enjoy? What was, something that was good for me? And then she wanted to participate. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And I do see that when I do sit with her and get involved in the activity, she's more interested and she's having fun. My personal struggle is, of course, the moments where I definitely can't sit with her. Like, I'm trying to get dinner served, or I'm trying to clean up, and we've got, a timeline to get into bed, or I mean, this actually, her boredom question usually happens right after school, and when she would like to go play but she can't at that moment. So that's usually the timeline, and usually it's because I'm personally busy. But I do think that if I give myself even just 10 minutes to pull something out, that might be
well. And she can I mean, really, the thing that I would also encourage is that she be responsible for dinner with you.
Yeah.
Like that she has, like one of the things that we've found really works is we have a family meeting and we plan out the week, and then they're responsible for different meals at different times. And then, Christos will be what we call the sous chef. So they're really in charge. But because that's a perfect opportunity too for her to participate in being a contribution to the household. And
Yeah.
that's the conversation with children really at the lower L. That's a perfect time to start asking them, what have your contributions been today? Right?
Mhm.
I'm bored. Oh, great. What have your contributions been? And because that they have to be, she may have a lot of jobs in the house. I like to call them contributions because I find the term chores for them is a turn off. But when you call it a contribution, they recognize they're contributing to the family.
Mhm.
So we have the expectation in our house that you are a contribution every day in multiple ways. And so we will, when we see Sia doesn't really have an issue with this anymore, but when Georgie starts to not be contributing, we'll have a conversation throughout the day of what are you planning to have your contributions, because she still has choice in the matter, right? What are you planning to have your contributions be? And then what contributions, what have your contributions been? So I don't know if that helps at all, Alicia, but just maybe a different way to think about it a little bit.
That is helpful. It just gives me some other things to try. That would
Mhm.
be, I know, like, I know what she's going to say in some cases, that she, I have, like, I'm sweeping up or something. Okay, well, do you want to help me sweep? Like, this is what I'm doing right now. And do you want to get the
Mhm.
dustpan? And she'd be like, no. And then, like, walk away.
Mhm.
But I feel like if I start maybe setting up more of the expectation that this is her contribution to the home. I mean, she definitely has been a participant in all the subjects that we've been talking about.
Mhm.
And when she is able to help, she has developed such a tremendous sense of pride. Like, she talks about her quesadillas that she can make.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm like, we don't have a dinner plan for the night. I'm like, what do you want to eat tonight? She's like, how about I make us quesadillas, and I'll let her make me a quesadilla too.
Perfect.
And so she is just so, she tells everybody, like, I make my own quesadillas, like this. She's just so happy to do that. And so definitely there's more work that we have to do, but
And that's perfect.
simplifying all the clutter in the house, all the
Yeah.
various, we have so many books. We're just completely overwhelmed, and I would love to, like, donate. So we're just kind of working our way through
Yep.
all of that stuff.
Well, and you may ask her, because she has an interest in cooking then, right? And so
Yes, definitely.
maybe she takes on learning a new meal once a week that she could add to her repertoire.
That could be fun.
And so she can go through a cookbook. I would have some parameters around nutrition personally before, so it's not, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. Like, we really try to frame out what our requirements are for the meal. And then within that framework, she can decide and then you guys can go grocery shopping together. I don't know if you're doing Instacart or whatever, but she can participate in that part of it and really have that sense of ownership of what because if she's getting that much pride from quesadillas, imagine how she's going to feel when she can bake a chicken and she can, and it's piece by piece,
Mhm.
um, so that would be my approach with that piece. And the other thing I would tell her, like, they take in whatever we tell them. So Georgie was really struggling with practicing the piano. This may be a week ago. She's kind of melted down, and I said, I get it, you're building a new neural pathway and your brain, it's uncomfortable. She said, I feel like it's a shovel in my brain. I was like, yeah, because you're having to build, this is a new song, it's harder, you're having to build this new neural pathway. And so last night she played the song for my folks on the phone, and they were talking, and they said, that's really, you're getting better. And she said, yeah, you should have seen me last week. I was crying, I was a wreck, but I had to build a new neural pathway. Right? So she remembered this thing and really took ownership of that. So if you can have the conversation with her of, like, that human beings have resistance to can have resistance to being of service, because there's a piece of us that says, no, that's not about me, but you want to work with her on getting her brain to take on the whole community. I don't know her very well at all. I mean, I've just met her, but so I'm not saying anything about you. This is for everybody. We're having this conversation, right? But it's such a nice opportunity to help her understand what her brain is going through, help her understand her own resistance, help her understand kind of how she works. It's kind of the Daniel Siegel's Mindsight tools, which I love, of really just looking at how her brain is feeling and why, and being able to have that emotional intelligence so that she can move past her own resistance. That's the piece we've been talking about in our house a lot, is like resistance comes up to these things that we know are really good for us. Like resistance comes up to exercise, or to practicing the piano, or to writing a paper, whatever, or doing the dishes. And how do we support ourselves in getting past the resistance when we know that that there's a need? So, but you're at that age where you can, like, lower L is so fun, because their brain is just exploding, and you're able to start bringing in these like really deep philosophical conversations to them. I love that age. That's my first training, is the lower L. So
Mhm.
so let me
Thank
know.
you for that.
Yeah, let me know
it's
how
really
that
helpful.
goes. I would just love to hear how, it's as much as possible engaging her in understanding. You could even say to her, when you come in and say that you're bored, I'm concerned that you're looking to me to do your thinking for you. And no make wrong, just we want to get your brain engaged so that your creative brain turns on. Let's, how can we do that? Like, how do we support you with that? You don't want me to do the thinking for you your whole life. We want you to be the thinker. We want you to
Yeah.
know how to think for yourself. And you really can engage her in the conversation that way. And because you're the communication is I'm partnering with you on your self-construction. I'm not running in to save you. I'm partnering with you. I'm in how you're building yourself, and I'm here to support you in that. Does that make
That's
sense?
really helpful. Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It's my favorite topic. So
I don't know if you had mentioned this at all, but I just wanted to mention, because it's been so helpful for Mia. But this touches on kind of the routines, like expectations that she needs to meet in the morning specifically. And I feel like I should do another one of these for, let's say, when she steps in the door. But we have a little routines chart that we made, that it was just a little DIY flip chart with magnets. And it has like the pictures. I made it when she was in pre-3K. But she knows that when she gets up in the morning that she needs to make her bed, she needs to brush her teeth, she needs to put on her clothes. And it was a really simple process. But that simple act of putting that there, putting it right by her door, she is just tremendously like excited to announce when she's finished almost all of her routines and she's about to run downstairs so she can get started with breakfast. And so that really helps with I feel like we can expand on it now, because she's older, obviously, and the expectations of things she needs to do should change. But I think I'm just like so thrilled that she's taken that, she owns it, and she still, like, we started it when she was 3, and she's still using it 3 years later. So that was really helpful for us, especially, in the morning when it's tight and we're trying to get out the door. She doesn't have to think about what she needs to do. She already has it outlined for her.
I think that's a great idea, Alicia. I'm going to add a slide on something for the future for this class, because I think that's a really important idea. And I even, I was thinking the other night that I wished I had a note card next to my bed of all the things I'm supposed to do before bed, because it's like engages my brain to try to think about, did I get my mouth guard washed? Did I like all the things, and so I love that you have that. I mean, we have a schedule up in the house, but having it next to their door and so that they can really look, that's a lovely idea.
I could take a picture of it and send it to you if you
that'd
would
be
find
great.
that helpful.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great. That would be great. All right. Anything else? I do recommend Montessori from the Start for those of you who have a child, a little one like Deandra. This is perfect for you if you have a second to read. That is a great book on the environment, but it's 3 and younger. How We Montessori is nice. It's a nice little website. The Michael Olaf catalog has at the top, it's great for the younger ones. It has articles on how you use the things in your house in a Montessori home. And then on the bottom, it has products, and then how to raise an amazing child the Montessori way. It's a beautiful book, beautiful photos, not a whole lot of real, brass tacks information, but it is a very sweet book. So, all right. Well, that is all I have for you guys today.